Good morning, good day, good evening, good night. Wherever and whenever you're listening to this, welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall. I'm One Clue, your host, and I'm really happy to be here and to talk with you guys about open source, the Bitaxe project, and what else comes along. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here. We are writing the Townhall number 48. It is, it's always kind of insane how far we already have made it, and what is going on here. It is just brutally insane. I'm really happy that so many of you guys are interested in today's town hall because obviously we want to quickly go over a couple of the changes that we do have with the latest release of ESP Miner. There are so plenty new changes and fixes and what else. It is just fantastic. But before we do dive into that, I want to quickly make sure that everybody of you do get that, especially for the people who are joining or listening to this later on. These town halls are usually for you guys. So you can always come in here, ask any questions. There is a chat that you can use. There is also the possibility for you to raise your hand. So if you want to come up on stage and have a chat with either me or other people who are on the stage, feel free to do so. And yeah, just be sure these town halls are recorded and will be uploaded later on to a variety of podcast platforms. So just so you know, if you don't want to speak and be recorded, then use the chat functionality. And for everybody else who's listening to this later on, we have plenty of information sites if you want to dive a little bit more deeper into open source mining and why that is important, such as osmu.wiki and osmu.xyz. Apart from that, let's start with the big thing here. We have a new release, the version 2.11.0, and I'm so happy that it's finally out. It took over 2.5, almost 3 months, and it has plenty new things in there. One of the biggest things that I was really enjoying about that is that we finally have so better viewability and readability of the hash rate, because now we switched over from the share-based calculation. Nothing was wrong with that. It's just now we have the ability and option to use the hash rate register. And this is something that is sitting in the ASIC chip itself. So if you think about the chip, it is having multiple smaller sections, and some of these sections do calculation for the SHA-256 algorithm, and other parts do other things such as communication, etc. There's also one part in the chip that is more or less calculating the hash rate that the chip itself is producing, or that all the domains in the chip are actually producing. And you can read that out. We figured that out quite a while ago, but Mutatrum was really nice and made sure to implement that for all the chips. And yeah, now we do have the hash rate register, which is more or less the most accurate reading you can get out of these chips, as long as we do believe that the register is actually correct. It might be that there is some discrepancy, but well, we can only find that out if we do monitor that over a long period of time. But from what we have monitored over the past month, the difference between the share-based calculation and the hash rate register is not that high. So it is really a great thing, and we can reduce a lot of other code stuff that was in the firmware and have just the register, which is easier for the firmware itself. It frees up other things, and it is overall just a nice thing. For everybody of you who is freaky enough to go into overclocking, there are also nice new protection features for you specifically. One of the things is the reworked overheat protection. So if you are actually overclocking your device multiple times or whatever, or you like to go beyond what's possible with these things, then yeah, you do have the option to just do that, and your device will make sure that it does not burn out, because the new overheat protection will make sure that the device still keeps functional, but it will also make sure that the power to the chip is immediately cut, which is a huge benefit, because previously the overheat protection was basically, oh, we are too hot. Let's just quickly reboot the device and let's go to 100% fan speed. Nothing wrong with that. The problem was, and I was not really thinking about that, that previously the rebooting would cause a reinitialization of the chip itself. So what this means is it would actually try to restart mining and would produce more heat. So with that, the prior overheat protection was not really, or the overheat mode was not really working in the way I would love to have it. So we reworked it, and now the ASIC chip itself does have like 30 seconds where it will cool down, and then it will reduce the frequency, it will reduce the voltage as well, and it will start mining again automatically. And if it stays stable, it just stays there. If it will go into the overheat mode again, because let's say, for example, your heatsink just fell off, then it will do the same thing again. It will go into the overheat mode, it will cut all the power. Your chip will not produce any meaningful heat, and it will be cooled down as quick as possible. And if it is safe to boot up again, because there is a threshold of temperature and a threshold of time, then it will try to reinitialize itself. And yeah, I just hope that that is working way better, and that it will not cause any devices to burn. Like previously, like literally, if you're running anything prior to the version 2.11, and for example you're in holidays or whatever, and your heatsink is falling off, your chip will likely burn. Obviously, that can still happen. Like these chips, they will fry really quickly. But now we have like a proper thing built into it that it will also cut the power, and that there's not much going on. I do see a couple of people do have some issues in the chat with the audio. I mean, I don't know. The update of Discord here today was a little bit weird. A couple of things were not working. I needed to play around with that. But yeah. Chris from IXTex, you said you logged an issue on the new firmware today. What kind of issue? Self-test issue. Let's see. I'm quickly opening that up. I see. All right. So it appears to be that there is some self-test issue going on. Needs to be investigated, definitely. Power fail on brand new devices that pass self-test in 2.10. All right. Yeah, we definitely need to take a look into that. I'll make sure to do that. Obviously, if anybody of you guys does have any issues or anything else, feel free to always open up an issue on GitHub or try to report that in the Discord server here. I mean, the Discord server in general, we do have channels for opening up issues or suggestions or what else. So if you want to contribute in that way, but they are not as frequently used as GitHub. GitHub is more or less the thing to take a look into. And yeah. All right. Apart from that, let's also take a closer look on what else is going on with the new release. Obviously, there are so many things. I don't want to spend all day long just speaking about that, but I think the most important things are basically we have now the hash rate register, we have an improved overheat protection, and we also have a way more snappier web interface thanks to DuckX. And that's just beautiful because a couple of things have been reworked, such as the swarm functionality, which is this page on your XOS that you can use to control multiple of your devices at just one page instead of having 10 or 15 pages open. And the cool thing here is he was reworking plenty of that, from how they do communicate with each other and send out, for example, notifications. If you now do have an issue with one device and you're in another device on the Swarm page, you get a notification that something is wrong with the other device. So there is more or less a notification system going on, which is really great and just helpful overall. And yeah, I cannot stop talking about how great that is that we have fixed plenty of things, but as you've seen, and I just wrote it in the chat there, seems to be always some stuff going on. We do have firmware testers. And if anybody of you guys want to be a firmware tester, it's basically just a role that we do give from time to time here in Discord to people who are applying to that. We have a channel called application or apply for role. If you scroll on the server to the very top, you will probably see the channel apply for role, where you can go in and you can fill up a form and tell us, well, you have X amount of bit eggs and you're in these kind of topics interested, and if you think that fits in, and basically everybody fits into that, if you do have a Bitaxe, then we give you the role of the firmware tester, and you get notifications when we have like beta firmwares out there. But be aware, testing firmwares could sometimes go wrong. I'm not saying. I mean, I haven't seen anything bad going on with the beta firmwares, apart from sometimes you need to completely refresh the device. But we do have a couple of people who are really helping us out because they're firmware testers and they do test that. Because think about it, like as a developer, you're sitting there, you're trying to figure out all the possibilities of what could go wrong. But sometimes there are just other people who think about other parts, and they do actually find issues or bugs that you would never have find, because you would never think about that. All right. Ido is trying to speak. All right, Ido, let's bring you up on stage. Hey, buddy.
Okay. So first of all, is there any plans to add the security thing that PMax added to NeXtGX?
So
Like,
that's a really interesting question. So the thing with the security implementation that PMax added to the NerdX firmware is based on OTP, and OTP requires, for example, a NTP connectivity. And so far, we have been really strongly encouraging the point of we do not connect to anything else apart from the pool. But I I'd say depending on how many people actually also want to have OTP on the BitX, the possibility is there. Yes, it could be implemented. But for now, there are no plans unless people are requesting that, and it's a huge amount. We do have a question in the chat from Two Sets. What is OTP? You probably have a couple of online accounts where you need to scan a QR code with your phone and type in a 6-digit number. That's called an OTP, a one-time password. And this is implemented in the ESP-Miner firmware for all the NerdX devices. But yeah, as I said, the only thing that is currently holding us back is the standard that we said, well, we don't want to connect to anything else apart from the mining pool and your computer that you're connecting from towards the web UI. But yeah, technically it can be implemented.
and
So I do hope
yes.
that answers the question.
So the display on the Bitaxe is extremely small for it to actually generate a QR code, but
Yes.
you can make the XOS to generate a code on screen so you can scan it from there.
Yes,
Like
there's a
it's in
nice thing
the
to
near
that.
that.
So with version 2.11, we already do have smaller QR codes for connecting to Wi-Fi because that does not really use that much of a space, and it does actually fit on the small screen of the BitX. So if you now flash 2.11 on a fresh new BitX and you try to connect to its Wi-Fi, the access point it's opening up, it will actually display you a QR code on this tiny screen. But obviously, it would be better if we had like bigger screens. And therefore, a couple versions ago, we implemented more displays. For example, the SH1107, which is double the pixel in width, and in height it is even 4 times as much. So it's 128 multiplied by 128 pixels, or times 128 pixels. And the best thing here to would be if manufacturers would start using bigger screens, such as the ones that are currently implemented, which is the SSD 1309, 1306, and the SH1107. These both are really big screens, and you can put out way much more pixel on them. And in the future, potentially, we could also use other screens. But SPI currently is out of the league because we do not have enough GPIOs open for that or free for that. One thing would be that we use maybe a bridge from the BAP port. But to answer the question about if it is even possible with these screens, I think with the bigger screens it is possible. With the smaller screen that is standard on all of these BitXs currently, No, with that, displaying a QR code for OTP is not possible.
Sounds good for me, but it's better to release it once bigger screens are added to the Bitaxe because now it's pointless.
Yes. Yes,
Because some users have weaker phones, weaker cameras. That's the main issue here.
definitely. I do agree with you on that.
But one more question. With the release of Zyber, Tiny Chip Hub seems to have abandoned the ESP miner for the Hex line. Are there any plans to add support for the Supra Hex? Because I own one and 2.9 it's kind of old and I miss a lot of features.
I do see that. Unfortunately, I do not have a super hex, so that is kind of the thing that is limiting us. The developers who are working on the firmware, obviously they need to have access or they need to have such a device. With the version 2.11, Mutaru made sure because he does have a Bitaxe Hex Ultra, the version 303, and he brought back this specific version. If we can get our hands on other variants like the Super Hex, sure, we can, in the future release, we can make sure to bring them back as well.
All right, so I might talk to you about this later on. I might send you one of you guys my Supra Hex for this specific thing because I really want updates. And I like them a lot, but I kind of miss them because I have the Nerdax and my only Bitaxe thing is the Supra Hex.
Well, yeah, that's sadly a little bit unfortunate. I mean, one issue there is obviously Tiny Chip Hub going now a different route and banding also a little bit on the open source route here, I might say. Um, yeah, it's kind of sad, especially like people purchasing that and thinking they do get the support, and out of a sudden it is no longer the case. Yeah, that's really sad to see. But yeah, I do think if the availability for developers is there that they do can get these devices, they can bring them back into it because even though we abandoned the Bitaxe hacks, the original hacks from ESP Mana back in 2.8, I believe it was that we abandoned it, we always said, well, we want to bring it back. The only issue was it did not fit into that because we had so many things that were misconfigured or not in a state that we can have a modular firmware. And now, with all of these changes that we made over the last 3 releases, we are finally in a position that adding new devices, depending on how much different they are, only takes a matter of days instead of weeks because the code is way more compact on the points where you need to change actually stuff, and it is way more clear to read.
Yeah, so I will talk to you about this later because I really want to send you my unit to you for
It's
this
really
specific
helpful. It's really
reason. I
helpful.
don't
Thank you.
mind. I will support the full cost of shipping just for this. Just for this. This is all I want
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you really
for
much for
the
that. And
surprise.
also, thank you very much for the questions. It's lovely if people are actually raising their hand and coming up here on stage and having questions. I'm really eager to see that way more often. Thank you for doing that.
Actually, I didn't want to raise the hand because I understand English better when I'm reading it rather than talking it, if you know what I mean. Because I'm
Yes,
Romanian and I don't speak it very fluently.
but you do very well, so nothing bad about that.
Yeah, it's kind of strange with when talking online, so that's why I stutter a lot.
No, it's fine. You're doing good. You're doing good. I really appreciate it that you did that.
This is all I got. This is all I wanted to ask. I will send you a message later,
Thank
this
you very
night or
much.
tomorrow. I will let you know when I can send it to you, and if you want me to send it to you.
Sounds perfect. So we'll have a chat later on about that. Great.
because I'm not the only one who needs, because there are a lot of people who have the super hex and
Mm-hmm.
they are missing a lot.
Yeah, I do feel that.
Not
I
only
mean,
for me.
the difference between version 2.9.0 and I don't even know what Tiny Chip Hub was actually putting in their firmware for the version 2.9.0 and today's version. Um, but from what I've seen from screenshots, there are a lot of differences between them. So yeah, yeah, people are missing out a ton of features.
Yes, that's the main issue.
So in the chat, Comex is writing, I prefer no OTP myself and to rely on network security instead. Yeah, I do get it, and I'm more, to be honest, on your side. I do understand why PMax was putting in OTP and why so many people are screaming for that. So the main issue, or probably most of the people will not even use OTP, but one of the biggest issues is that people see the BitX, they see the NerdX or any other device, and they think, oh my goodness, I can log into the web interface and I don't need a password to log in and change stuff. That's scary. So they think just a password would protect them. But just having a password on the web UI would not protect you because we also do have an API. And if that is exposed, but only the web UI has been protected by a password, there is no security gain. It's like you're trying to shift the issue from one place to another. It doesn't make sense. And that's why we always said, well, you are requesting a password security on the web interface. I'm sorry, fix your own network. There's no way that you need a password if your network is protected enough. And then we had a lot of people coming in and saying, well, but we have probably multiple people in the same Wi-Fi, and I'm afraid that they will change my settings. Yeah, that's a really specific issue. Um, I guess, or maybe not. Maybe you are in a family with plenty of people, and I don't know. You have a brother or sister who's trying to mess with your Bitcoin miner. Then you might have an issue. That's true. So the only reasonable answer to that would be to go with OTP because OTP basically gives you the option of having it secured with a NTP security level. So it means like there's like a live cycle going on. It is live using some data from a network conversion server and is making sure there is a sync between your phone where you do have the code and the device itself. And you can connect the web interface. Like you cannot click buttons, you cannot change the Wi-Fi or the Bitcoin address on the web interface, and you cannot even do that on the API. Technically, yes, we could also secure the API with a password, but that's kind of stupid. That is like 1990, 2000. These days, you don't want to do that. So going with OTP for the NerdX devices or the NerdMiner devices, NerdX devices. I'm sorry. That is, in my opinion, the only logical way. So he did the right thing there, and apparently he told me a lot of people were requesting that, and yeah, he already thought like, well, a password doesn't really make sense. Is the only way to set a password up through an OTP. Matt, I think you're asking if OTP is the only option to set up security for the NerdX devices. Yes. I mean, the biggest option is just secure your Wi-Fi and don't have like strangers in your Wi-Fi or people that you don't trust. But sometimes that's maybe not easy. But for now, as I said earlier, like Bitaxe itself will not implement anything that is connecting to other servers at all unless a community demand is there. It's a community driven project. And sure, as much as we developers do like or dislike features, but it's the same as with Bitcoin. If like 100 people or 1,000 people say, well, we want OTP, either we developers who are currently active developing on that or someone else is stepping up, is doing a pull request. And if enough people are voting for that, then here we go. Duncan is joining in here. Hey, Duncan, do you want to come up on stage and have a little chat with me about an event that we attended to? Not really. Oh, sorry.
what instead of the OTP, we have each user set up a password and have the ESP miner encrypted?
That's another thing. Before I do answer that question, PMax was writing in the chat, the NodeX firmware was already spoiled with the mempool ticker and yeah, Bitcoin price, etc. So he's correct. Like the NodeX firmware itself, it was already exposed to other services. It was already tracking the Bitcoin price. It was already tracking numerous other things. So just adding NTP to it, or having NTP and now use the OTP functionality wasn't much of a big deal. So there was not really that issue. For Bitaxe, it's completely different. The Bitaxe itself is only connecting to the pool you want to mine to. And if you use the web UI to check for the latest update on the releases, then in this short period of time where you click on read the release notes or you click on download files, then your Bitaxe actually also connects to GitHub, to the release page of GitHub of ESP Miner. I'm sorry. But apart from that, there's no other connection going on. And now introducing a spoiled thing here. Yeah. So Ido, you brought something else up. The issue that people also might go or will go into is, let's say you have 20 different bit eggs or 20 different node eggs, and you have OTP security for all of them. You have a lot of QR codes to scan. You have a lot of numbers that you need to check, and you have a lot of things to do to figure out which code belongs to which. PMax, please correct me if I'm wrong. I see you already writing in the chat.
Yes, and you might forget password to one, and boom, brick.
I mean, it might be that PMax is now correcting and just telling me, no, you can use OTP for multiple devices with the same security chain. Might be.
Well, if I remember correctly, each account have a separate code.
Okay.
If
So,
you have an account for the same platform, there are separate codes.
So PMax is writing in the chat, you could provision your miners with the OTP secret via the config. So yeah, all right, that is more or less a secure thing of doing that because you need physical access to it. Otherwise, you cannot change the NVS configuration without any sort of hacky injection into the device. Sorry, I quickly need to drink something.
Safe approved IP sounds good too, because the device will know you're trying to access it from your network.
To go quickly back into the topic of provision multiple devices with the same secret. So technically, you could set up once OTP for one of these devices, then you read out the secret and you apply it to all the configurations of all the other devices. But that requires people to understand how to flash and how to override the configuration. So it's not an easy thing to do. The handiest thing for people would be to have 30 different QR codes they need to scan and 30 different numbers they need to track on which belongs to which miner. Might be difficult. For the point of safe approved IP addresses, well, I don't think that would work out. What if, for example, your main computer that you do use, or you only have one computer that you use, and it dies, and with it, the IP address does not get provisioned quick enough for you again, you can no longer access your devices. So just saving approved IP addresses is working if people are working with static IP addresses, that's for sure. But with standard DHCP connections in most of the routers these days, I don't think that actually makes sense. Kryptonite is writing in the chat, what about a similar function to WPS? I mean, to be honest, I don't. So WPS is a thing where you can connect certain devices over Wi-Fi with your router by pressing the button on your router and on the device, or enabling it on the device via web interface or something like this. And the way how that works on this end is you have this physical access of bringing it into the network, and the only thing that WPS is doing is like, all right, we have a client who is searching for anybody who's allowing them. And now I'm pressing on my router the button and I say, well, if there's a client or somewhere around, just put it into the network. I don't think that is a security. I think that's vulnerability, because think about it. If I just walk past a huge building with probably 200 people living in it, and a couple of them do have a WPS capable router, I just put out my Flipper Zero and have a little bit fun and just wait a while until someone presses this button and I'm in their network. Yeah, I don't know.
You got the point. You got the point.
I mean, kryptonite is not primarily wrong here. It does make sense, and we had this conversation a while ago, and it's really good that you're bringing that back, kryptonite, because we had the conversation. How can we make the interface more secure? How can we make sure that people who are using the device, it does not take a degree to understand it? I mean, currently it is, in my personal opinion, but I'm biased. I'm working on this for so long. I'm really biased. So I'm really eager to have new and fresh opinions from people who never used that before and just see how they do use these devices. But we had this conversation about, what if you can only update the device or only change settings if you press a button on the Bitaxe? Technically, yes. We even have an open issue for that. I think I opened that issue 4 or 6 weeks ago because we spoke about that. And I was totally into that. Yes, that's a totally possibility that we could do. But then we had a lot of people who are like, dude, I have 15 Bitaxe. I don't want to press 15 buttons to just update my devices. That doesn't make sense. So there are some drawbacks. WPS is like handing someone the keys to your house. Huge vulnerability. Yeah, indeed. So it's a thing here, especially. I mean, I'm from Germany, and in Germany, the most loved router is the Fritz box, and it does have this huge WPS button. Most of them have that. It's just like, don't press it. Don't press it. It is telling you to press it, but don't do it. It's like a huge vulnerability. Let's see. People don't think before they click email links. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing. You're totally right about that. Let's bring Duncan here on the stage, because Duncan, do you have some
Hello.
opinions that you want to share with us here?
Well, about excuse me, about security and WPS and stuff.
Security, WPS. I think we can abandon that topic.
Yeah, I don't like WPS. It's it comes with huge kind of liability, really. I'm gutted. I'm sorry that I missed the first kind of 20 minutes. I was dealing with family stuff, but I feel like I've kind of arrived halfway. So just if you wouldn't mind, just give me a 10-second rundown. I assume it's about talking about security and whatever for logging into the Bitaxe. Is that the general kind of
So we basically
consensus?
just quickly spoke about a couple of updates that we do have with the version 2.11 and IX Tech. Chris, I think, was it? Or was it the other one from IX Tech? No, it was Chris. Chris also mentioned that he probably found an issue, or he found an issue in the self-test. So yeah, for the manufacturers, I'm sorry, but it appears to be that we need to have a version 2.11.1 to fix this self-test issue. I'll take a look into that tonight. So let's see how this goes. And after that, yeah, we straight went into the topic of Edu having a couple of questions about OTP, because in the NodeX firmware is OTP active now. You can use it. And now we're discussing a little bit on how we can improve that, because I said, well, the Bitaxe itself is only connecting to the pool. The NodeX firmware is connecting to a service that is showing you the Bitcoin ticker, the time, and now OTP with a NTP server as well. So yeah, there's like a huge difference. It's not too bad for adding it to the NerdX, and it's really great for the NerdX firmware. But in the current moment, unless enough people are requesting something like OTP on the Bitaxe, it will not go into the firmware.
Sounds reasonable. Yeah.
All right. I'll quickly bring Matt also here on the stage. Maybe you do have a couple of points. If you
Sorry,
don't
just dropped
have a
out.
couple of points, then we will move forward, and Duncan and I will probably share with you a little bit of insight about a conference that we both attended in the last couple of days.
But can I just add really quickly to that one, Clue, if I may? Obviously, I know, so I've seen the photos, so there's no denying it. But Disrupt was on in Dallas. So, obviously, you and I did a special conference in Europe. I know Matt also did a conference in Dallas. So I think we should basically have a whose conference was better.
Oh, that's
obviously,
great.
Well, I mean, but to be honest, let's be fair. Texas has better barbecue. I'm just going to leave that there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We can't deny that. We're proud of our barbecue.
Well, as a proud British, there is a reason why I have a Texas tattoo on my forearm. Just saying.
Oh yeah. Well, how's it going, everyone? The only reason why the web UI protection crosses my mind is because a lot of people do have access to very cheap or free power. It's called work. So a lot of people may bring their devices to work, and that's like a separate risk on its own, because every department of employment also probably has an IT tech that could probably see that IP whenever you connect your device. So I don't know. I guess in the future it would be cool to see something implemented, but if it makes everyone's life harder or it poses even more security risks, then may not be as valuable as I once thought. That's pretty much my thoughts on it.
I think I can only agree. Would you?
It kind of feels like, if I may, it kind of feels like this whole kind of thing just needs more discussion, I think. And I think, as stuff, as conversations kind of progress and evolve, more ideas and concepts kind of come out of the woodwork. It's certainly not something that needs to be rushed to implement. But I think you're right, Wonklu. If it's requested more and it comes with good kind of points behind it, then I think absolutely needs more discussion. But it's one of these things that I think will probably grow and evolve dynamically, or
Yes,
organically, shall I
definitely.
say?
I mean, there is no hard lock to anything apart from doing some shitcoinery. Sorry, but that's a no. That's not gonna happen. But apart from that, no. Basically, everything is open for discussion. But features such as adding OTP security or else need a lot of discussion, need a lot of community involvement, because driving that forward, I don't feel comfortable being me saying no to that and like 1,000 people request that. And I would also not feel comfortable the other way around, like me saying yes and 1,000 people saying no. I wouldn't agree to either of these paths. So it needs a lot of discussion, definitely. But for now, the thing is, we go with the current route that we do have. If you're not working or using your device in a secure environment, I'm sorry, but that is currently a you issue.
Can I just add one more thing as well? That talking about kind of secure environments and presumably just be connected to kind of public or just various Wi-Fi stuff. So that other people got access to. At home, I run multiple VLANs and multiple wireless networks. I mean, I don't really care if my kids go onto my Bitaxes and stuff, but I do that for segregation. I've got a lot of Chinese IoT shit that I keep away from my kind of main ecosystem. And VLANs and separate wireless LANs. There's got to be, that to me is a fairly decent kind of middle ground, really.
Yes, it is. Especially with VLANs, we are already talking about like having a network where you can even have not only a separation physically, but also virtually, and block just that. As you said, like you have a network specifically for all this Chinese IoT shit, and you probably have set up a couple of network rules that would prevent them from reaching all of the other devices on other VLANs. I do the same on my end, but yeah, sure, I'm completely technical. But the point always comes back to, we have a couple of people who are always looking over everything to make things granny proof. We cannot go out there and tell Granny 2, hey, please set up 3 different VLANs and make sure that you have your smart cleaning robot in the VLAN 2 and all of your mining devices in VLAN 1 and all of your guests you will put in VLAN 3. That's not going to work. So it needs a lot of discussion and figuring out what would be the most appropriate way. But currently, nothing like OTP is planned.
Fair enough.
Fair point.
All right. Matt, would you like to share a little bit with us what was it on Mining Disrupt? Were you just chilling at your booth and selling Bitexes, or were you actually going around and enjoying how it was? Because I've never been there, so I'm eager to hear.
Yeah, sure. So, Mining Disrupt in Dallas, it was definitely smaller and more intimate than it was in Miami in earlier in the year. So it's good. It's always good to talk to like leaders in the space and see what everyone's up to. And right now it seems like a lot of large miners might be pivoting to AI. So it really makes the case for home mining. Because we tend to think that home miners are the miners of last resort. And I would assume everyone else in the space feels that way, right? Because like that's why we're all here. What we are all doing is very important. But it was good to make those connections and then meet up with other sellers in the space and see that everyone's like just crushing it towards the end of the year. It's good time right now, holiday season. A lot of people loading up on stocking stuffers, and we actually got to co-sponsor the Bitcoin Mining Museum, which is we had
Bitcoin Dads.
CoinDad reach out to us. Yeah,
Dad, yeah.
we had CoinDad reach out to us, and we were able to make sure that he made the event too. He holds a lot of things that hold a lot of sentimental value, not only to him but the entire community. And it's always good to walk around and see the history of Bitcoin mining.
He is such a
It
nice
kind of
dude. While he was
yeah.
driving to Mining Disrupt, I had probably like a 1 or 1.5 hour discussion with him about mining and decentralization. It was really great. He's a lovely person.
He's a man that guy. He always finds a way to make it work, and he's gonna have some pretty exciting news coming up. I'll let him disclose it. I don't want to take his glory, so it's gonna be amazing. Yeah, he's a really good person, well respected, in everyone in the Bitcoin mining space. And Mining Disrupt was good, man. I think everyone had a really good time. There's a lot of after events where everyone got to do a lot of socializing, and it's important that we all work together. So that's what we're focused on.
Really, sounds great.
I
And
can also confirm on your behalf, Matt, that you did have fun. I've seen the pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not much of a picture person, man. So like I'm not always the one to run around with my phone out taking pictures of things. And it's good because I get to live in the moment and I get to speak to everyone. But sometimes it's kind of bad because I don't have anything to reflect back on other than things in my brain that get lost over time from having so much stuff on it.
Well, that's living in the moment is a fantastic way to live, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw some. I had quite a few industry friends there, and I just saw. I've seen some photos, and I just saw a smile on your face on every single photo. So it looks like you had a good time.
It was good. How was you guys' event?
One
So-
clue after you. You start, buddy.
all right, so Duncan and I, we both had the crazy idea to attend to the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference, and my first impression was kind of shocked because of the location, because it was literally in a sugar factory from the 19th century. And it was kind of wild. On the second day, it was raining, and it was raining through the roof. But apart from that, it was kind of funny. It was huge and small at the same time, because like the rooms inside had like ceiling heights of 8 to 10 meters, and the space in the room was just so limited. So it was kind of wild and even a little bit weird to be in there. But we met so many people. We had so many great conversations. You were just going to grab a coffee, and out of a sudden you bump into someone else. We're just saying sorry, and then you start a conversation, and turned out that was really great, and you made new friends. So overall, that was really great. Duncan and I also attended or have been on the stage, and we were talking about if home miners even contribute to the decentralization of mining. And we had a more or less conversation or argument on the stage about that, which was really great, and I really appreciated that. It was fun.
He wouldn't arm wrestle me, bitch. Yeah, but you're right. It was
win, man.
It was actually having the four of us on stage. So it was Mars, the guy who one of the developers of Hero Bitcoin, Bert who runs Bitcoin Brabant, myself and Monclu. It was a really nice. It wasn't so much it was a bit of a debate, but it was just a really nice open mic conversation. We probably had, how many people would you say were in the audience, Monclu? Maybe 600, 500 maybe?
Yeah, something like that. Probably closer to 400. I would go a little bit smaller because it's kind of weird. Like these rooms were massive, but I don't know. It felt surreal of the space that you had, especially with like the ceiling height being so high, and then the room itself was just so small. But yeah, probably something between 400 to 600.
Yeah, it was it was very well received. And the general consensus, through talking, whilst we're on stage and talking afterwards, people say, "Oh, well, you're never going to mine a block. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference."
Duh.
But the point, yeah, I know, right? The point that we got across, which people kind of agreed with, is it's not. It's the home mining is not just about mining the blocks. It's about the political resistance. It's about global power balancing, as in balancing kind of hash rate. It's about responding on demand if we need to. If everybody ran a miner and we all had to club together to point our hash rate somewhere to mitigate a 51% attack. It's education. It's everything in between.
I think the good part about that is if we do achieve all the previously spoken parts, we also achieve more blocks because it just comes with it. If we have more people who are believing that, well, just running multiple smaller instances of mining farms instead of having like massive facilities of megawatts is not just only spreading the decentralization of the hash rate, but is also spreading the creation of new blocks. It just comes along if we do that.
Yeah, and I tend to tell people too. I'm like, the large mining farms, it's cool and all, but it tend to get really centralized, with a few players in the game because there's all the upfront capital, so it's those people are forever in debt, and then there's also the risk of like their local governments coming in and trying to take it over, right? With home mining, you would have to go like door to door. There's also like the security risk of all these guys pivoting to AI, right? If we lost a lot of the hash rate over to like an AI pivot, I mean, sure, it would be good for us at home, but you would have to assume that the network would lose a lot of its hash rate, and that's like one of its biggest security features. So it's interesting to see, and if anyone in the audience has never been to any kind of event because you're scared of doxing yourself like that, I was kind of weary of the first one I went to just because you never know, you don't know what to expect. However, I will say that you have some of the most high level intelligent conversations you've ever had in your life, and sometimes when you're a Bitcoiner, especially like if you're mining, people may have heard the word Bitcoin, but a lot of people outside of our space are unaware of how it even comes into existence. So you really get to network and meet with people who are on a high level, if not higher level than yourself. So there's always something to learn, and you start to see those familiar faces after a few times, and it's good to make new friends in different spaces. And you never know, you might meet someone you can start something really cool up with, and learn a bunch of new stuff.
One thing that Duncan said was like, dude, every single time we're on such an event and we meet, we always go home with like 100 new ideas. It's totally correct. It's like every single time Duncan
But it's also totally expensive. Every time we come up with amazing ideas, it's but that's not a bad thing. I'm playing.
But it's fun.
You
it's
should
fun.
you should leave with a pocket full of ideas and a pocket full of business cards. I'll tell you what's cool is that our our first year, you guys remember the Nashville conference and
That was
how a
great.
Bitaxe hit a block right before the conference, and
Yeah.
like we were there and we got such a mixed crowd of people. Obviously, a lot of people wanted to know how in the hell could this happen with such a small device, and they were really intrigued and like believing in it. And then there was another crowd of people who were like, this is a one and done, this is a joke. It's
Yeah,
really
then hit
cool
the
to
second
see.
block.
Exactly. It's really cool to see the change in mind of others now and how they view the space and Bitaxe and home mining, etc. We have it's funny because like we get some of these people who have large mining operations, and they'll come over to the booth and they don't even know how to set a Bitcoin miner up. Maybe they're like in some position where they never have to set one of their miners up. They'll like buy bit axes for all of their employees, or they may even just buy one for themselves just to run at home or to let their kids mess around with. And it gives everyone a really good educational aspect. And even then, we're starting to see that even people in the larger miner industry that are doing maybe developer work or like they'll take a Bitaxe and they'll experiment on it first, because all a Bitaxe is really just a fraction of what they're dealing with at scale, right?
Hmm.
And it's just really cool to see. Like, there's definitely a shift in belief when it comes to people that are in the larger game as well. It's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, and apparently these events are all around the globe. Like Raj is currently posting in the chat. There's also Bitcoin India. So yeah, basically every single country, not every single country, but every single continent does have more or less of these conferences. So that's really really nice to see. I mean, just this year I was in 3 different countries at 3 different conferences. It's kind of exhausting, but at the same time, it's also refreshing because you get so much new input, so many new people to meet, and you can just exchange. And sometimes it's also just about meeting friends again because that's the best time to meet them.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I have to agree with you. It's 100% about kind of meeting up with old friends and making new ones. I had the privilege of meeting you, Matt, and your team last year in Vegas, and actually I can't wait to see you guys again. And actually, the guys from Ixtech as well. I met Sean, had beers. In fact, I had beers and tequila with all of you. It's just fun, and the networking and camaraderie and ideas and inspiration that comes from that. You can't buy that. And that's just awesome, and that comes with these events.
Yeah, talking to people face to face is always great, and having a few drinks and meeting up afterwards. It is really exhausting, but you're not there to sleep. You're there to talk to people and have a good time. And it's just always the hardest thing is it feels like, your operation has to come to a complete screeching halt to do that. So then when you come back, you're like trying to make up, from being in the rear. But it's fun, man. Just the connecting and opportunity, seeing old friends. That's some of the only time we see you guys, because you
Mm.
guys are overseas. So, yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, man. Absolutely looking forward to Vegas. Yeah, so kind of I want to echo that. If anyone's on the fence about coming to any of these events, just if you're worried about doxing yourself, wear a mask, like whatever. But just come because it's like-minded people talking about like-minded stuff, inspiring each other, and just actually having a great time. And it's through those connections that actually all of this grows.
Yeah,
So yeah.
the open source developer conferences are like some of the really cool ones to go to, because it's not there's absolutely no shit coinery there, number one, and number two, you meet literally the most brilliant people in the space that have like developed some of the most amazing protocols that you probably use today, and they're the reason that keeps Bitcoin going. Um and and like also, I don't know how a lot of people view Bitcoin when they first come into the space, but it's like, it's just this magic internet money thing that just tends to
Mhm.
work. And when you start to see all the physical infrastructure and the flesh and blood people that are behind it and building all of this stuff, that's when it really settles into you that it's that like this is real. There's real proof of work and real effort going into all of this thing that we put our entire life into. So
Yeah,
it
but
gives you it
don't
gives you a
think
feeling of security too.
don't think that everything is just like flowers and great and sunshine. I mean, you also will probably bump into a lot of people who are just there to have some sort of an investment or trying to seek out for the next big thing. It's always the thing. Like capitalism is driving the world, so therefore you will also have probably a couple of down moments, or you feel exhausted, or you feel it's a little bit too much. But that's a process. It it comes along, and even that is great. I think I personally experienced that being 3 times this year on conferences was kind of interesting. Being last year on conferences and the first time last year on such big conferences, it was in the first time a little bit exhausting, and I was even questioning myself if I should do that a second time. But in the end, I was like rethinking about it and rethinking how nice I do find it just hanging around with Duncan. So it was a no brainer for me.
Well, I'm just pleased that you're a terrible influence on me. So we had good times.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to say. So something that basically it's one sentence that kind of came up afterwards, and I think anyone who's listening to this has a relationship with Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, and we should all be propagating this, and that's decentralization is only possible if everyone takes a little piece of the responsibility. And that's the message that we were kind of pushing on stage, or I was pushing on stage, because actually decentralization, I want to circle back around to this really quickly. Decentralization, excuse me, is really important and imperative to the integrity of Bitcoin, and everybody should take some responsibility for that. So I just want to leave that there.
100%. Like a couple of people were coming around, and after we had the talk, they were like, "Well, great, we just all of us need to purchase a Bitaxe, and then we have decentralized the hash rate." I'm like, "Well, no, that's just one part that it takes, but you also need to think about like what's going on with where the hash rate has been pointed to. Like that is the biggest issue. How the hash rate is currently looking. If you think about it, like 60% of the global hash rate has been under control by basically two companies. So yeah, there's a lot to do. It doesn't just help if you have a miner at home and you point it to Antpool or friends. It only helps if we have multiple smaller instances of pool. And yeah, that's the message that you need to have, or that you need to think about. And even if you disagree and say, well, no, I don't want to lose on potential income, yeah, well, okay, then it's a thing. We don't blame you for doing that. But from what we're trying to achieve, or what I'm personally trying to achieve, I don't need to use the term we here. So what I'm trying to achieve is to tell the people, well, think about it. It's not only just the hash rate and where you do have these physical devices located at. It's also of where do you send the hash to? Do you solo mine? Do you pool mine? Which pool do you use? Which payout mechanism do you use? Because even that changes on which pools will gain tractions and which will fail. So it's not just one part, it's not 5 parts, it's a million different things that come into this calculation to make sure that we can make Bitcoin decentralized again. And making Bitcoin open source again is a total different story because, yeah, sure, nodes are, wallets are, but mining, I'm sorry, we have fucked that up like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think interesting that yeah, I think something interesting too is that something that we've seen and noticed ever since BitX just kind of started its ascend and started getting adopted on a bigger scale is that there's actually people looking at all of the different pool models and figuring out how to build community pools. And it'll be interesting to see in the months and years ahead how all of that sort of plays out. Um, yeah, it's really good if we're hoping that other pool models, open source like Ocean, that way people can take that and implement something of their own and keep building on top of it. It'll be interesting to see. I think the pool space tends to I think it's going to diversify more. but only time will tell. Like projections are really hard. I don't like making projections.
For sure, definitely. All right. With that, I think we spoke today about a couple of things, a couple of the new stuff that's going on with the latest firmware. Also, quickly elaborating on a potential issue that was just discovered for manufacturers. It's not a bug; it's a feature. um, and afterwards, we spoke about so many good questions that we had, especially when it comes to security, and we also elaborated a little bit on all of the nice things that you might expect from going to conferences. Do you guys have more questions? Like, for everybody who's in the audience, I'm really appreciating everybody if you being here and listening and taking action in here. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask them. The chat is here for you. Well, we are here for you. If you want to ask anything, nothing is forbidden to be asked. And unless that's happening, maybe you both have something else you want to add.
I would just like to say really quickly, something that really struck me about this conference was how many people know nothing about mining. They're
Oh my
just there
goodness.
for number go up. That really kind of stuck with me. And I just think, yes, we're early. We've still got a long way to go. But basically, without mining, Bitcoin ceases to exist. That's all.
Yeah, when I first got into Bitcoin, I didn't know anything about Bitcoin mining. Like it's like from an educational standpoint, how or just typically how people tend to learn about Bitcoin is just from like buying it and holding it, right? Um, and it that really doesn't do anything. It might do something for you in the future and your family and kids and all that stuff, and that's important. But when you get involved in mining, or maybe it's just running a node and mining, you know, whatever, it does so much more for the network and for your own personal self too. Because people tend to talk, and Bitcoin mining also has sort of a network effect, right? When people talk about it for the first time, they get really intrigued, and like the home mining space is a really cool place to be because it's a small stepping stone, to something much larger. And I think that's what people are starting to see now as well. It's funny because mining disrupt has always, from what I've heard, it's always typically been like the big dogs that come in, Bitmain, What's Miner, the big ones on top. And the founder, or the owner of the Mining Disrupt conference, he actually he actually really doesn't he really doesn't want he wants the presence of home mining at Mining Disrupt um more than he does larger miners at the moment, because we are the people who will disrupt mining. So it kind of goes hand in hand. It's really interesting to see because now there's a lot more people who don't know as much about Bitcoin mining, walking around and mingling with others at Mining Disrupt. It's interesting. It's very interesting to see and then hear how it's been historically. You can almost kind of paint a picture in your head of where it's going. Hopefully year over year, more home miners and more people that are spinning up manufacturing or retail spots in the home mining space start popping up, and maybe all of Mining Disrupt will be like a bunch of cool stuff that you can run at home. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, just with the name itself, Mining Disrupt, it immediately sounds rebellious, and it immediately sounds where like the cool
Yeah.
kids go.
Yeah.
Not slating BTC Amsterdam or Vegas by any means, but like it feels like that's where the natural progression of mischief wants to go, and mischief in a positive sense. And the thing is, I was talking to a couple of people over the weekend about this, or the other day, yesterday, in fact. It's been a long week. Just about how lots and lots of little projects are just spawning after, one after the other. It's like a fuse has been lit. in this industry. The home mining has come full circle. We all, early adopters. I was fortunate enough to get in around 2011 with mining and stuff. It was CPU, then GPU style. Well, yeah, basically CPU, GPU, and then it went industrial, and home mining kind of died a death, and now it's come back in full circle, and there's no sign of it stopping, and it's really exciting where it's all going. And I think disrupt is where it's at, to be honest.
You can see that when you walk around the Bitcoin mining museum, and I think that's what's so awesome is that it started small. Well, that first ASIC, like the Avalon miner, is pretty huge, right? And then you just kind of walk around and you see how it was smaller, but like you might have like some of these first ASIC miners that are huge, but they're only doing like 60 gigahashes, and then it goes over to Bitmain and all of the big machines, and then it trickles back down toward the end of his museum, and there's like Scott's Bitaxe, like and all of the other home miners. So it's I think that's what's funny, walking around that and seeing how it started at home and then it got larger, and then you walk around to the end of the museum and it's starting to get a little smaller again.
But what's there will be a name for this kind of curve, because there's always a technical name for something. But essentially the fact that it started at home, industry took over, the big boys bullying in, but actually home mining's come back, and actually I'm sure if you looked at that as a pattern, home mining is where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be for the people in everybody's home, and based on that, I can't see home mining like trickling away and industry taking over again. I just think it can only grow. And before long, I think it's going to be very normal to have, home heating systems that are Bitcoin mining kind of, orientated, and underfloor heating, and, miners in your car or whatever. I mean, why not? There's so much surplus power available, and it's here to stay. Why not?
Yeah, that's the disruption, right? Unfortunately, the hardest thing is always just ASIC chip availability, and that there, I think there's going to be some new players coming to market with like ASIC chips that you can just buy. Hopefully, they're
100%.
willing to share their documentation. That would be fantastic. That's something that will be good for everyone across the
Well, the thing
board,
is,
right?
it's already happening. We so yes, at the moment we are with the Bitaxe and the Gecko Science ecosystem and whatever. It's all been harvesting Bitmain chips. But if you look at the last 10 years, there are so many players that have come to market with their own iterations of chips, and there's more and more coming. And there's lots of interest in open source, fully documented stuff that is slowly being funded. So yes, it's early days, but I think if we set a bookmark to have a conversation this time next year, I think we'll be very surprised with how far we've come. Even with just ASIC chips in the market.
Yeah, and I think that's when the full potential of the space really becomes unleashed, right? Like you said, there's so many different applications, and I was fortunate enough to be able to sit on a panel with with highly intelligent people and talk to them about that kind of thing. And they talk about ASIC chips and refrigerators, and yeah, and my thoughts on that is like it's definitely a possibility. Will it be Samsung or GE that does it? That'll be interesting to see. And then they'll probably spin up some kind of business model or pool off of it, and it's almost putting async chips and things at a large scale might be a way to get things down to their natural production value as well. That way you don't have to buy $1,000 refrigerator. You can sell it at cost. And the business that manufactured it might mine Bitcoin off of it, but it makes it cheaper for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interesting times ahead.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Want Clue?
I mean, the biggest thing that we need to tackle here is to get more chips, as you said, into this ecosystem as well. We cannot solely rely on just using Antminer chips. I mean, we're heavily working on that. The Intel chips, which are by far not as close when it comes to efficiency, are currently being worked on, and there's some good stuff going on. Unfortunately, the developers who are working on that were not available for today. I'd love to have a conversation with them about that, because there are a couple of things going on with that. But yeah, there are also other things, like people are working on the What's Miner chips. There are also other people working on the Avalon chips. So it's slowly progressing, but until we do see the first devices coming out with these other chips, we're currently limited, but we're making the best use out of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and it's the reverse engineering process that takes so long, right? It's very time consuming, and you have other resources that go into it as well. So
Yeah, I mean,
as
not only
people look
that,
at
it's also like designing new styles, new form factors, new ways of how you can or how you want to put up multiple chips into a single unit. It is really time consuming. I mean, best example
Mhm.
is a version that I'm currently working on. Initial plan was to release that last year during Christmas, and guess what? 1 year later, now I'm finally done with that. But and I can release that next month. But it took 1 year longer than expected. It is so hard and time consuming. It is don't go out there and think, well, just designing a new thing is kind of easy. The first initial step in getting into this whole hardware design and hardware understanding is really, that's a learning curve, and it's a really, really steep one.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, with that, I think we can close that up here. I thank everybody for tuning in here, and I thank you guys for coming up with me on stage. I also thank Edu for being up with me here on stage and asking questions. That was really brilliant. So thank you guys for being here. Thank everybody in the audience for attending to this. Chris, by the way, if you do have a couple of seconds, please be in the general channel with me. I want to talk about your issue that you found. And apart from that, thanks for tuning in. And the stage is yours if you want to say goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you from grey London. It's raining, it's miserable, and I miss Texas. That's all I'm saying.
May I have a boil of
Sun
water?
shining here.
Oh, of course. One clue. I miss Germany and you too, of course. So, always.
Goodbye.
Good night, guys.
Funny.